DCTs and lame exhausts are good for the motorcycle industry. And actually encourage more performance in the lineup. Here's why. So, welcome back to Moto Remy, or Remy Moto, I guess we're calling it now. Here's why I think DCTs are good for us, and why I think that we should be happy that a lot of the dad bikes and lower end stuff, and even some of the higher end stuff, get really lame exhausts from the factory. And the answer is simple. The EPA. If you've got to meet EPA standards for your fleet, meaning you can average across, and it has to be, it's like 250cc or something and higher, you've got to have at least a few bikes that are extremely compliant, because otherwise you're going to have to neuter the bikes you don't want to neuter. For example, if you're Honda, we'll just use Honda because I'm familiar with Honda's line. Any of your street legal bikes, basically anything high enough to be class 3, you can average the group, but they have to, as a group, meet the new EPA standards that are going into effect, and they're pretty freaking strict as far as motorcycles are concerned. They're trying to get us in line with cars, which have much more room in the engine compartment, much more weight availability to put all this equipment in to deal with the emissions. We don't have all that, so we've got to deal with it almost exclusively by optimizing the engine we do have, and then a good muffler, a good exhaust system that scavenges out most of that crap. But the end result is that for a given size engine, you're not getting a ton of power that you could get. Your exhaust sounds lame, and the aftermarket is perfectly capable of making this way better. Like, that's how we look at it. So this is why I think the DCTs are a good thing. They let them optimize relatively big bikes. Notice they're putting them on like dad bikes, gold wings, big touring bikes, big adventure bikes, you know, the less aggressive cruisers, and that's intentional. They're giving them to people who don't necessarily mind that that's a good option. They're happy with that option, and they're willing to spend the money and pay the theoretical performance hit, because I think very quickly we're going to see that there is no actual performance hit. You know, just like when BMW and Porsche proved that their automatic transmissions were better than anybody but a truly excellent driver around a course. And the other thing is, the DCT eventually is going to enable them to have more gears. Because if you don't need to have easy availability for a human to shift it, the availability to pack in more gears is pretty darn good. So more gears to be more efficient, better fuel efficiency through that, lame exhausts from the factory to optimize that. So if you can have, say, a third of your lineup that is not the third that the enthusiasts really were concerned with, be extremely EPA compliant. You know, they beat the standards by a lot. And let's face it, you sell a fair number of those bikes. There's a lot of those customers. You can now make things like, the Fireblade. You can make supermotos. You can make, you know, powerful adventure bikes with, you know, plenty of low-end torque, and still have decent highway power, and still make them with a manual transmission. this is very difficult to do and keep them compliant on their own. And I think that's what they're going to have to do. We're going to see a whole bunch of bikes over the next couple of years that are basically redone. And we're already seeing it. The 750 lost its manual transmission. There's no option for it this year. Last year, the DCT was available, but not the only option. This year, it's it. That's all you got. Take it or leave it. I think that we will see, for example, the Rebel 1000 or 1100 or whatever the hell it is, DCT only. I think we will see possibly a CB 500 in DCT, and I think they'll sell a lot of those to commuters. We're going to see more big scooters, because if they can get the engine big enough to meet the EPA guidelines for this class, they can average those in. Well, those can be extremely EPA compliant. That's relatively easy. You just have to get them big enough to be class 3 instead of class 2. Well, sure, go for it. I think we're going to see more bikes geared toward the commuter market again. Urban commuter, not commuting from the suburbs where you're getting on highway. Urban commuter. And the goal is going to be to offset your performance bikes. Now, this is also why I think companies like Suzuki have been coming out with new models now. Not necessarily completely new model, but like new engine models. You know, they're redoing a bike with a new engine, because that gives them the ability to make a very compliant engine. Now, is it the engine itself compliant? No. Or maybe not. I don't know for sure. But it's more compliant than the previous one, which lets them have less offset they need to do with some other bike. You know, that gives them an advantage over their current fleet where they can't meet those guidelines. You know, they're stuck. I think we're going to see a revamp of, and keep in mind, it's sales. It's not just, you know, take your fleet and average it. It's based on volume. So, you know, if you sell a ton of something, it can help. So your most popular models need to be either very compliant if you want to help your average, or at least not too horribly uncompliant. This is why Harley is so big on this M8. They need it. They need that engine to be compliant in most of their bikes. So they don't want to put the 131 in most of their, you know, top selling bikes. They want you to do it. They want you to modify it. They don't want to do it because that makes the bike from their lineup non-compliant. Harley wants to sell a lot of those 107s, a few 114s, and only sell the 131 in a few models. You know, a few, in terms of volume, you know, 10% maybe, if that. Because you can upgrade. That doesn't affect their average with the EPA. That's not a factor. They don't care. So I think going forward with this, going into the future, I think we're going to see a lot of mid-sized bikes, A2 compliant European, you know, licensed bikes. And the reason for that is simple. They appeal to a broad market. You can sell a lot of them. And if you do sell a lot of them, and we need to make a bit of a speed run to test this mic, so we're going to head to the right. If you do sell a lot of them, you ease up your average. You help your average. There we go. Okay. Let's repeat this. So, whatever this is, I am not sure what that is. I mean, it's a Harley, but I don't know what it is owned, or at least being ridden by, the gentleman that did my MSF course at Javelina Harley. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I may go to the effort of figuring that out before I post this video, or I may not. I'll let you guys tell me what it is. Wow, it's like I forgot how to ride. Let's go straight. I looked at the footage that I have, and anything over about 40 is useless. Same problem as before. I don't know. I think I'm just going to have to do a different helmet. So anyway, on with the video. I think we're going to see a lot of smaller CC bikes. I think we're going to see the Royal Enfield plan executed by other companies. We're going to see 350s, 400s, 450s, even 500s detuned to meet A2 European requirements. Now that's key, because what they're going to want to do is take a larger engine, detune it so that it is compliant with the A2 guidelines, which also, gosh darn, just happens to make it easy to be EPA compliant in the US, along with European emission standards. Gosh, I mean, how convenient is that? And I mean, if it just happens to leave the aftermarket free to upgrade this easily to way more horsepower because you've got a bigger engine that is just detuned, well, that's just too bad for the EPA, right? I mean, the aftermarket's going to love it. They didn't hear me. It was the two sport bike guys I just left at Black Rifle. They were parked across the street. We're getting gas. I've never actually used that gas station, so we're not going to start now. But anyway, I think we're going to see a lot of smaller engine bikes that come out with new engines, very efficient, detuned. I think we'll see everything up to 500s. And then I think we're going to see some new modern takes on the bigger engines. Just more efficient. Just like Harley did with the M8. They didn't come out with the M8 because they needed more power. They came out with the M8 because they needed to meet emission standards and improve their production capacity, you know, make a more modern, efficient build engine. And by coming out with a new engine, they leave all the legacy crap out. I think we're already seeing the start. We saw the XSR 150 or 125 or whatever it is that Yamaha put out for the Asian and Indian market. I doubt we'll see that in the US. But they get to see what the reaction is in the US. Do people want that bike? Are people interested? Are people talking about it? What is the buzz on that bike? And if it gets positive buzz, they go, okay, let's build a 350. Let's take the R3 engine if they don't revamp that. I think they're going to revamp that. I think that's going to become a 350 or similar to compete with the Ninja 400. I don't think they'll go to a 400. I think they'll stay a little smaller. They could take that platform, just like they did for the XSR 700 from the MT-07. Take that platform and turn it into an XSR 300 or 350 or 400, whatever it becomes, right? And have a winner. I would have bought that bike. No, 100%. If Yamaha had made an XSR 321, right? An R3 in an XSR format, I would have bought it. If I could have found one in the right price range, and I wouldn't have been able to because it would have been used. Yeah, it wouldn't have been used. But, you know, in theory, 100%, that would have been the bike. But I think we will see everybody do it. I think the Kawasaki stole March on everybody with the 400s because they are optimized already for that market. The 400, I think, is going to be the winner for engine size. Big enough to be fun, small enough to be fuel efficient, big enough that if you've detuned it enough to be A2 compliant, somebody aftermarket can add significant horsepower. I think we're going to see a lot of stuff along the same lines as the Meteors, the Scram 411s. Take care, have fun, stay safe, folks. Keep the rubber side down. We will talk more about EPA stuff in the future, I'm sure. I think that the industry as a whole is going to have to adapt and is going to adjust itself to meet government standards, particularly Europe, where they're being extremely strict about what you can do. And the U.S. is very, very much following part of the California guidelines. I don't think we're going to see all of the restrictions California has, but the emission stuff, I think we will. They kind of standardized on that. So anyway, ciao.